Oh, Chubby Bunny's experiment. Chubby Bunny. Chubby Bunny.
Keep going, brother, keep going.
That's only 4, go on.
Thanks to Richard, one of our ministers, for being an exceptionally good sport. Thanks too for the heckling crowd behind him. Wasn't it good to laugh at somebody else for a change? And I wonder if we can get other people to front up over the next few weeks. So this week, the youth have issued me a challenge to come up with a talk out of a set of objects. Now we're going to get to them, but I've also been asked this week by someone from the congregation, how do you keep coming up with ideas for your talks? Now I want to answer that question by taking a behind the scenes look at how I do that, and I hope that the wiser people amongst you might be able to draw some links between what I do and how you can face up to the challenges of your life. I want to do this in the form of an interview, and the only way I can do that is with Wooly the sheep. So bear with him as he asks the tough questions and gets to the heart of the matter. So John, great to have you on the show. Now this week you have been dressed up as a shepherd out in the hills of Bristol, telling the Christmas story in July. What we want to know is, how do you keep coming up with these ideas? So Willie, thanks for having me on the show. My first response is that I believe that God has given me a gift, and I say that not as a boast, but I believe that God has given absolutely everybody a gift and an ability, and it's up to them how they choose to use it. I think the Bible says a lot more, not about the gifts themselves, but actually that challenge of, are we prepared to use them to bring Him glory or to build up other people? So God gives you the ideas. There must be more to it than that. Intent. How can I explain it? Well, there's a famous story of the painter Pablo Picasso, who's eating in a restaurant, and one of his fans comes up and asks him to do a drawing of them on a napkin. And so he does, and he gives it to her, and she asks, how much do you think I should pay for this thing? And he says, $10,000. And she turns around to him and says, but it took you just 30 seconds. And Picasso's reply was, no, this is the product of 40 years. There's a book on my shelf over there called Holy Habits. Now it's a decent book, but it's a brilliant title. What habits help you when producing talks? So 3 things. The first one is praying. Sam talked last week about praying in everyday situations and doing it throughout the day, and that was a really helpful way of putting it. But praying's not about meeting a quota, as though God will only hear us if we say enough prayers in the day. No, God's response is He just loves to hear from us, and He loves to answer us as well. Secondly, there's the Bible. Now, God hasn't left us in the dark. He's given us His word and His ideas for how to have the best life imaginable. My problem is remembering those ideas so that I can have them when I need them, when I'm thinking up ideas. So what do I have to do? I have to read that book daily, and I need to keep going over those stories so they become ingrained in my memory so that I can use them when I need them. And the third one is other people. Now, the reason this slot ended up taking so long is because I chatted it through with Ian, and he came up with so many helpful suggestions that I had to fit more stuff in. Iron sharpens iron. That's all very well, but how do you ensure they are relevant? Now, for me, what God has to say is helpful and is relevant. And if I didn't think it was, if it didn't feel like it worked for me, I would be doing something else with my life. The other way to make it relevant is to be listening to people and listening to culture. Now, other people don't have to tell me anything, but if they choose to tell me something, then it's my responsibility to treat that as important, and I use that to help shape, and part of my response is going to be in the talks that I give, just by hearing the stories that people are telling me. And I also listen to culture. Now, the youth group commented last week at how many DVDs that I have in my living room. There's also a similar amount of books. I love hearing stories, and every time I'm listening to them, I'm listening out for the message that's coming through there. And I love to use quotes to illustrate everything. And it's a great joy when they marry up, like this week, when there's a quote from one of the films that I wanted to use in the all-age material. And it happened to be on TV on Saturday afternoon. So that's brilliant when everything lines up like that. Now, you clearly get a lot of information, but how do you know what you are saying is what God actually wants? Great question. So we've already mentioned checking with people and checking it's aligned with what we see in the Bible. But also, praying beforehand is really important. Saying those words, thy kingdom come, and meaning it. Now, I've spoken in church before, and I pray, God, let the bits that are from me be forgotten, and let the words that come from you be remembered and be noticed. Then all I can do is just really step back, and it's not part of my story anymore. It's part of that story between the audience and God. What does God want them to hear? And he's big enough to work because of what I say and despite of it. And maybe I'll be lucky enough to hear how. Thanks to John for that insight. So coming up are the objects to spark ideas for next week's session. I wonder what he'll come up with. What do they speak to you about? After that, backed by popular demand, are the cheeky pandas.
When I gaze into the stars, when I see the life of planet Mars, there's only one creator. When I watch the moon at night, when I feel the sun is burning bright, there's only one creator. So clap your hands and sing, shout out and worship him. So clap your hands and sing, and let the praise begin. Oh wow, what a God, oh wow, what a God. There's no one like you, there'll never be another. Oh wow, what a God, oh wow, what a God. There's no one like you, there'll never be another awesome God. Na 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 na. the world. There's only one creator. All the languages
We're talking in
French, Spanish, Greek to Mandarin. Solo hay un creador. So clap your hands and sing, shout out and worship Him. So clap your hands and sing, and let the praise begin. Oh wow, what a God! Oh wow, what a God! There's no one like You. There'll never be another. Oh wow, what a God! Oh wow, what a God! There's no one like You. There'll never be another awesome God. You walked upon the earth You made. Oh wow, oh wow. You died and now we can be saved. Oh wow, oh wow. You rose and left an empty grave.